Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. Now, just doing this video on how angels cannot sin. Angels can't sin, just, some basic edification on that subject. Because you have people going around talking about how Lucifer fell from heaven and all that stuff, and that's just not true. We're gonna read and we're gonna understand that angels have one glory and the flesh has another glory. And glory is like the good thing about something. So the good thing about this flesh is how we can have sex, we can eat food, we sleep, different stuff like that. But the good thing about the angels, the glory of the angels, is that they're perfect. They're perfect, they're undying, they're immortal, they don't sin, they don't have this carnal mind. So we got to understand that Lucifer, nowhere in the scriptures does it even say that Satan rebelled against God. It never says that. It only says something in Revelation and throughout the scriptures where it says Lucifer fell like the morning star. I think I'm roughly paraphrasing it, but that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about Satan, man, and we're gonna understand that. So first of all, let's just read this real quick on Google. Because Google got AI now, which gives you some pretty good summaries. Now, all I typed in is Bible says celestial body, right? It says the Bible, specifically 1 Corinthians 15 and 40 and 41, speaks of different types of celestial heavenly bodies and earthly bodies, each with their own distinct glory, like the different glories of the sun, moon, and stars, and how resurrected bodies will also be unique, right? So let's read that. 1 Corinthians 15 and 40. Let's start at 39. It says, all flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, and another of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. So we got to understand that there's different types of flesh. There's different types of flesh. And what is different about it is here in this earth, here under the sun, the animals have a different mind than us. They have a different mind than humans. They have different instincts inside them, different ways of thinking, right? So there's different type of flesh. Verse 40, it says, there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial is one and the glory of the terrestrial is another. Now that's the main scripture that proves what I'm saying. There are celestial bodies. Now let's go into that word celestial. Celestial, it says existing in heaven, things that take place in heaven, the heavenly regions. Heaven itself, the abode of God and the angels, you see? So celestial is talking about the holy angels, all right? The beings that live, come and go from the spirit realm. So it says there are also celestial bodies, aka angels, and there are bodies terrestrial, terra going back to earth. So I think it goes back to terrain, which is the earth, right? And it says, so our bodies are made up of the earth. So it says there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. So that's talking about the glory of the holy angels and the glory of humans and animals is completely different. They have two different bodies, two different programs, right? It says, but the glory of the celestial is one. Now let's look up that word glory, because this is very basic to understand, but they don't go over this in Christianity. Glory, it says opinion, judgment, view, splendor, brightness, majesty, magnificent, excellence. So like I said, the glory just means the good thing about it, right? The like I said, the excellence of something. So it says, but the glory of the celestial is one. So let's break that down. The glory, the good thing, the excellence, what makes them shine about the celestial, about the holy angels, is that they're perfect. They don't sin. Holy angels do not sin. They don't go off. They have a celestial body. You got to understand, and we're going to read that what makes us sin is this literal carnal mind that we have. It's this flesh that we live in. That's what makes us sin. It's the mind that we cannot control that makes us sin, right? Going back to Adam, and you had the fall going back to Adam, which Christianity gets that story wrong as well. But what makes us sin is that we have these terrestrial bodies, man. We have this flesh, we have this carnal mind. Angels don't have a carnal mind. Angels they're not built they're not built the same as us. They're energy, right? They're spiritual energy, right? With a consciousness. And they don't sin. They don't have a brain to sin. They're angels. They have spiritual bodies. They have spiritual bodies. So they don't get attached to things. They don't eat things like food. They're not eating food in heaven. They don't use the bathroom. They don't have to sleep. They don't have to think. They're instant. They're just on another level than us here in the flesh. They're angels, man. They're completely perfect and righteous. Even the left-hand angels, the demons, are perfect. They're just fulfilling their role. They're just doing their job. So we have to understand that, right? It says, but the glory of the celestial is one. We just went into the glory of the celestial, the angels, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. The glory of the terrestrial is talking about the glory of these bodies that we're in. What is the glory of the bodies that we're in? We can sleep. Sleep feels really good. We feel different things like relaxation, and we feel good moods, good vibes. We eat food, we eat delicious food. You can have sex, you can drink water. These are all the glory of the terrestrial, the glory of these bodies that we have, right? So the angels have a different glory than us. They have a different build than us. Right? And then it keeps going on, and it says there's one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. For one star differeth from the other star in glory. Right? So there's different glories of the different things that exist under the earth, and the angels have a different glory than us. Their glory is that they're perfect and that they don't sin. Satan never sinned against God. Right? Angels cannot go off. Angels cannot do the wrong thing. They're programmed to be 100% perfect. So let's get something else. Let's get Romans 8 and 7. Romans 8 and 7, it says, I'm going to start at 5. It says, for they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the spirit of the things of the spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. And the angels are spiritually minded 24/7. They're never carnally minded because they're literally spirits. Another word for angel is a spirit. So how can an angel be carnally minded when it literally is a spirit in itself, right? It says, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of the Most High, neither indeed can be. So the mind, this carnal mind, is what makes us go off, right? It's not subject to the law, meaning it's impossible to keep the law 100% when we're dwelling in this carnal mind. And again, the carnal mind is nothing more than this human brain that we lack control over, right? We can't control this mind 100%. We have no control over the flesh. So we try our best to be perfect, but at the end of the day, our righteousness is through faith. Our righteousness is through faith. All right, we're made perfect through faith. But the angels don't have this carnal mind, right? The angels don't have a human brain. So how can they sin when they don't have a human brain? And the human brain is the reason why we sin, the flesh, which is the mind, right? Because all things come from the mind. You control the body with the mind. So how can angels sin when they don't have a mind? They're spirits, they're energy, right? Conscious energy. It says, so then they that are in the flesh cannot please the Most High, right? So angels are not in the flesh. So they're constantly 100% pleasing Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And then it goes on to say, but ye are not in the flesh, but in the spirit. And that's talking about walking in the spirit, ordering your mind after spiritual things, thinking spiritually. If so be that the spirit of the Most High dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the spirit of Hamashiach, he is none of his. Right? So that's when it goes into being spiritually minded and things like that, thinking spiritually, meaning thinking on things above, thinking about the right thing versus the wrong thing to do. Angels only do the right thing to do. We just read that in 1 Corinthians 15 and 40, how they have a different flesh than ours. So their flesh makes them perfect because they don't, their bodies, their celestial bodies make them perfect because they don't have a human brain to sin. Their energy, man. Now let's read, now that we understand that the angels don't have a human body to sin, they have a celestial body. Let's read some of the sins that are in the flesh to understand that angels cannot do this. It says, Galatians 5 and 19, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lasciviousness. It said adultery, right? Angels don't have sex, so they're not committing adultery. Idolatry, witchcraft. Angels don't do these things. You're right. They're not here. They're here, but they're here in a different realm. They don't take part in fleshful activities, right? Idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. So angels don't do any works of the flesh. It said envyings, right? Angels don't envy each other. They're perfect. They have a perfect consciousness, right? They have a perfect mind. They have a perfect understanding, right? Let's get more scriptures on the flesh so that we understand we do these things, man. Envyings, humans envy. Murder, humans murder. Drunkenness, humans get, that's talking about not being sober-minded. That only applies to us. Angels don't drink. Angels don't smoke. They have a different body than us. Right? Let's get some more understanding of the flesh. Let's go back to Romans 8 and 13. Now we're just going into the flesh so that we understand what the flesh is and how that it corrupts us and how angels don't have that. Romans 8 and 13, for if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. You see, the flesh is what makes us die. Angels don't have flesh. Angels don't die. They're immortal beings, right? But if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of the Most High, they are the sons of God, right? So what makes us perfect is having faith and walking in the Spirit. That's what the scriptures are going into. But according to this flesh, we're all sinners, man. We're all sinners in this flesh. Only through faith in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, only through faith in those names is how we're gonna make it up out of here. But Satan never sinned against God. We're reading about how angels don't have the flesh, and the flesh is why we sin. That's what we're reading about. The flesh is why we sin. So angels don't have these bodies, man. Angels don't murder, they don't drink, they don't smoke, right? They don't have sex, they don't eat. We already went into how there are celestial bodies and terrestrial bodies and different glories of the other. Now we're going into the deeds of the flesh, and what makes this flesh sinful versus what makes it perfect is walking in the Spirit, right? And angels are spiritual beings themselves, so they're always in the Spirit, right? They're always perfect, right? They're messengers, and they come from the spirit realm. The spirit realm is a place where Yahweh dwells, where Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is currently dwelling. And the angels come to and fro from the spirit realm. You know? So do the demons, man. We got to talk about the demons. The demons are nothing more than holy angels that you could say oversee wickedness. You know? They control it, if you will. So angels don't sin. Sin is breaking the let's end on that. 1 John 3 and 2. What sin is? 1 John 3 and 4. It says, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is a transgression of the law. So angels, again, angels are spiritual beings. They don't break the law because they're not in the flesh here to break the law. Right? They're perfect. So with that, I just wanted to go into, a little bit about the flesh and how it's different from angels. Just a quick straight to the point video. Lord willing, this was edifying. Again, Lucifer, Satan never sinned against Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. He's a 100% perfect being. Yes, Satan is perfect. He's just a left-hand angel, what they call a demon. So there are more scriptures I could get, but I believe the point was made. Lord willing, this was edifying. Till the next time, shalom.